Hey guys, welcome to question FM126 of the Further Maths Fortify Study Guide. This question reads, the following are either three consecutive terms of an arithmetic sequence or three consecutive terms of a geometric sequence. Which one of these could not include 2 as a term? So we're looking for the sequence that isn't going to include 2. Now the best way to do this is to go through all 5 of the sequences, figure out which one we don't think can include 2, and make sure that the others can include 2 to be doubly sure of our answer. So we'll start with A. Now A has -1, 0.5, and -0.25. Now you could either divide terms by one another, or you can see here that this is going to be a geometric sequence because we're not increasing or decreasing by a common difference. That is to say that if this was an arithmetic sequence, it would go from -1 to 0.5, and we'd expect a 2 coming after that, so increases of 1.5 if this was an arithmetic sequence. So definitely not an arithmetic sequence. It is a geometric sequence, and we've got to figure out now what is taking our sequence from one step to the next. So you could do this by dividing the next term by the term before it. So you could divide 0.5 by -1 or -0.25 by 0.5, and the answer you're going to get is going to be a -1/2. So we're timesing by a -1/2 in order to increase through this sequence. So our next step, if we were to move in this direction, if we would increase along the sequence, would be to times -0.25 by -1/2, which should land us at +0.125. Now, of course, we're going in the wrong direction. If we're trying to see if 2 is going to pop up in this sequence, it's not going to come along by continuing down this way through the sequence. So maybe we start looking backwards. Now, in order to reverse our direction through this sequence, instead of timesing by a -1/2, we're just going to divide by a -1/2. So that would be the same for all of these steps, dividing by a -1/2. And so if we were to divide -1 by a -1/2, we would get +2. So +2 is going to be in this sequence of numbers, so A is not our answer. The next sequence is a little bit easier. We've got 6, 8, 10. It should be pretty apparent that this is increasing in 2s. So if we were to continue this way, we would get 12. Obviously that's moving away from the 2 that we're expecting to see. If we were to move backwards through this sequence, we would expect to see a 4, and then a 2, so minusing 2 to move backwards. So in this direction, that would be +2. If we were to move in the other direction, it's just going to be opposite of that, which is -2. Once again, 2 is in this sequence, so B is not our answer. C, another slightly trickier than B, but still pretty straightforward. We've got -2, -4, -6. Now we should be able to see here that increasing to the next term in the sequence, to move from one term to the next term in the sequence, we're minusing 2. Obviously to go the opposite way, adding 2. So if we were to continue in this direction, we'd hit -8. That's not in the direction we want to move to see if 2 is part of this sequence. So we'll move the other way, adding 2 each time. So -2 becomes 0, which is going to, of course, become 2. So once again, 2 will be in this sequence, meaning C is not our answer. D, a slightly more tricky one. 10, 50, 250. So if you were to divide 50 by 10 or 250 by 50, you will see that this is increasing by a factor of 5 each time, which means that if we were to move in the opposite direction, we'll be dividing by 5. So moving out this way, the next term in the sequence would be 1,250. Obviously that's moving in the wrong direction to see if 2 is part of this sequence, so we take our 10 and divide that by 5, and that of course is going to leave us with 2. 2 is also part of this sequence, so far we're tipping pretty heavily that we're going to end up at 2 in sequence E, but we do want to, we're not going to end up with 2 in sequence E, but we do want to double check that and make sure. So we have a bit of a complicated one here. Negative 32, 64, and negative 128. So if you were to divide 64 by negative 32, you should get an answer of multiplying by negative 2. And the same should hold up for dividing negative 128 by 64, timesing that by negative 2. Now, if we were to continue this pattern, timesing negative 128 by negative 2, we should get positive 256. Now, of course, this is moving in the wrong direction again, so we want to come back over here and going backwards because we're timesing by negative 2 to move up the sequence. We're going to be dividing by negative 2 to move down the sequence. So dividing negative 32 by negative 2 should land us at positive 16, and then at negative 8, and then positive 4, and then negative 2. So this is where we see, and then positive 1. This is where we see that we're definitely not going to hit positive 2 in this sequence. We get to negative 2, but not positive 2, landing E as our answer, both knowing that it's not in this sequence and also knowing that it's not in the other sequences. If you guys have any questions about that, please drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.